For me, it was an October evening.
It was my first National Collegiate Speech and Debate Tournament in Lexington, Kentucky.
My family and I had just sat down to start watching the evening news. It was 2016, when all anybody was talking about was the election.
My entire team had crammed themselves into a tiny classroom to watch me compete in the semifinals round of debate.
I felt shocked, angry, and ashamed as I watched now President Donald Trump making incredibly misogynistic comments, culminating in that all too infamous phrase, "You just gotta grab them."
And it was at this point in time when one of the judges decided to unload on me and tell me that maybe I would have had a chance at winning that round if I hadn't been such a bitch about it.
This was our president.
I was just a freshman.
But this problem wasn't going away. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Abuse and Violence,
Across the nation,
within their lifetimes,
1 in 4 women will be the victims of severe violence by an intimate partner. That's 1 in 4.
On August 11th, 2017, our nation was forced to confront the fact that racism, both explicit and implicit, is still well and alive. In the aftermath of the Charlottesville riots, 33 were injured, 3 dead, and the question: how did we get to this point?
Asia Romano, culture editor for Vox, describes that the gateway drug that led them to join the alt-right wasn't racist rhetoric, but rather sexism. The basic idea that women are getting too far out of hand was the patriarchal common denominator, which in turn paves the way for white nationalism and white supremacy to gain a foothold.
One hate group that champions the same values of white supremacy and white nationalism that we saw in Charlottesville are the Proud Boys, a self-described male Western chauvinist hate group that also champions violence and misogyny as its core tenets. Their leader, Gavin McInnes, who created the organization in 2016, argues that a key component of masculinity is having beaten the shit out of someone. But this violence is also accompanied by explicit misogyny. To be a proud boy, among numerous things, one must believe that women are subservient and should be treated as such. This degrading ideology towards women, in conjunction with calls for violence, have manifested itself in the form of violent rallies and outbursts across our nation, from Portland to Georgia, in Seattle to New York, because when the leader of a hate group argues that violence doesn't feel good, justified violence feels great, and fighting solves everything, something must be done.
But the Proud Boys didn't just come out of nowhere one day. In fact, they are a direct offshoot of what many in academia have dubbed the manosphere. The manosphere generally refers to all forms of men's rights activism. You might be familiar with another group that has grown from it called involuntary celibates, or incels. Specifically, it's important to understand that it has been difficult in the past to recognize these groups as hate groups. The Southern Poverty Law Center only recently dubbed misogyny as a possible core tenet in January of 2018, when we actually initially began this campaign. But it is important first to unpack the ideological underpinnings of such groups. And there are 2 main ones to focus on: commodification and male dominance. But first, on commodification. Rebecca Solnit, an American author and activist, described the main problem with these groups is that they view sex underneath a capitalist lens, through which men exist to acquire, women the objects to be acquired. Within this mindset, she describes even further that sex might as well be with a dead object for them. For their ideology to work, women can't be human, because to make them human brings into sharp focus the real problem with Proud Boys, that there is something wrong with them. The second main part of this is actually male dominance. Christopher Powell of Ryerson University describes that the Proud Boys are not a part of a new cycle. Anytime a previously dominant group feels like their status is threatened, they tend to reach to violence as a main mechanism for reestablishing their power and control. So what does this look like? It looks like Elliot Rogers in 2014, who posted an entire manifesto before going on a shooting spree on UC Santa Clara's campus, killing 2. It looks like Alex Minassian in April of 2018, who encouraged all men to imagine a world in which women were afraid of them before running a van through a crowded Toronto street, killing 10. At this point in time, Groups like this have left us with more questions than answers. But Students Against Misogynistic Establishments hopes to be that answer.
Students Against Misogynistic Establishments has done a number of things to help combat misogyny in our community. SAME has a three-pronged approach to this, to our ideology. First, education, dispelling, and confronting. SAME was successful in participating in a number of campus-related activities to generate interest in our community. Whether it was tabling in the quad to directly interact with students and faculty, or hosting a Friday forum to better engage with students, all of this culminated in our spring summit, where we focused on better understanding the impacts of violence and misogyny. But we didn't stop there. SAME was also very successful with their social media campaign that helped with the Treasure Valley and abroad by bringing more recognition to misogyny and violence. And in doing so, we garnered over 40,000 interactions alone on social media. But in conjunction with that, part of this reason we were able to do this was by creating an original content fact versus fiction series as shown, and also by providing a platform for women to share their experiences and stories. By doing this, Students Against Misogynistic Establishments is helping to combat the narrative of violence and misogyny that hate groups, like the Proud Boys, continue to perpetuate. But our mission is far from over.
With this in mind, we have dedicated ourselves to creating new resources as we continue forward. And there are two main projects that we are looking at in the future. The first is the creation of a brand new website that we hope to unveil in fall of 2019 that will accumulate all of the educational resources and tools that we have already created. This is because one of the main goals of SAME has been to put the activism back into your hands, to give you the tools to have the ability to dispel these narratives that already exist. The second part of SAME's mission has always been to become a platform for other people to share their voices. This is why by the end of summer 2019, we hope to unveil a brand new quarterly newsletter that talks about the current event issues that are currently happening within these groups and the manosphere as large, as well as allowing individuals that are directly affected by this violence and misogyny a platform to share their voice, their experiences, and to help us dispel the narratives that allow groups like the Proud Boys to continue. Because the reason that a group like the Proud Boys, or like incels, or like any part of the manosphere is successful is because they exist in a shadowy place and a conspiracy-based place, in which feminism has only done harm, women have gained too much power, and they've gotten too far out of hand. But this still leaves us with the question, how can you help? Well, there's three main ways. The first is that you can follow us at BSU SAME and share a lot of the educational materials that we are putting out throughout our social media channels as we continue to expand into the future, spreading it along to your own audience. The second part is contact us at bsusame@gmail.com to engage in activism at the local and national level. We're always enthused to have the idea of having new energy and new people join us as we continue forward to confront these harmful narratives. And the final part is to contribute your story. Whether using it through social media, the brand new newsletter, or the brand new website, your story has always been a critical part of dispelling these false narratives that groups like the Proud Boys put out. And it has always been our proud mission to continue that. We are so proud to get to continue this work into the future, because at that point in time, I was just a freshman.
This was our president.
But this has always been about so much more than just an individual.
This is about a culture of embodiment, commodification, and violence.
SAME is asking for a value shift in our community. We are asking you to rethink the way that you conceptualize things like masculinity,
femininity,
violence,
domination,
commodification,
and misogyny.
Because for too long,
our stories have been separate.
But now is the time
to bring us all
to the same page.